Good afternoon, folks. John Kelly Profiler here. Before we get into the show today, it's really important for you to know about our other channel, especially if you have addictive illness anywhere in your family. Go to John Kelly's Thrive. Check out our channel on addictive illness. We've got loads of very educational videos there to help you with any kind of addiction your family may be going through or your loved one may be suffering. So please do that. If you like what we're doing today, please like us and please subscribe. And, right now, stay tuned. Here we go with the show. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for tuning in. John Kelly Profiler here, and welcome. Welcome to today's show, Knives, Lies, and Blood. Okay, that's the name of today's show. And we have a very, very special guest today. I think you're going to find it extremely informative. You're going to find him being a wealth of knowledge, and he's going to be going over some of the things that are out there and some of the things that the defense is coming up with on the Bryan Kohberger case. Again, Knives, Lies, and Blood. With that being said, I have two other things I want to cover. I want to send our deepest condolences out to the families and friends of the 4 victims up in Idaho, Maddie, Kaylee, Ethan, and Xana. We send our deepest condolences out to the family and friends of those poor young kids that were murdered. Today, you may have guessed it, I'm having Tim Braun on. That's right. Okay, he's the pro. He's the homicide pro, and he's going to be going over this with you, over these different dynamics of this case. Again, I'm so honored to have him. He's great. He's retired sergeant, detective, North Jersey homicide. He's worked over 400 cases. He's been a true friend and colleague of mine for many years, and I just continue to learn from him. I just continue to learn from him on a daily basis, anytime I talk. Okay, he's that good. So with that being said, Tim Braun, is there anything I'm missing?
Nope, that about does it.
Oh, wait. Yes, there is, Tim. Most importantly, for those of you that haven't seen The Good Nurse, the movie on serial killer nurse Charles Cullen, who was arrested by Timmy, you've got to see it. It's a fantastic movie. And then there's a documentary going along with the movie that Timmy does star in. He's in the documentary. Of course, he's not in the movie. They have an actor playing him in the movie.
Good thing.
He's the one that brought him and his partner brought Charles Cullen in. They did a great job. And if not, Charles Cullen will still be out there killing many people. I don't think you have a count, right, Tim, on how many people he may have killed. Do you have a decent count on that?
It's said that it's likely multiple hundreds.
Multiple hundreds.
That's just by the way he committed his acts. It's he's been evaluated by some experts in the field, psychological, psychiatric, and others, and those folks seem to put that count on him. Multiple hundreds.
Timmy, multiple hundreds. How many hospitals?
10. In
10
New Jersey,
hospitals,
New Jersey and
hundreds.
Pennsylvania.
Between Jersey and Pennsy?
Yes.
Multiple hundreds. A nurse, the Good Nurse. You got to see the show. It's really unbelievable. And again, Timmy, as always, great job there. So anyway, go ahead, Tim. I jumped off course here, folks. I'm sorry, but this man has just been through so much and uncovered so much, and has quite a story to his career and years in law enforcement. Go ahead, Timmy.
No, that's all. That's all I had. But as I do want to put a little disclaimer out for the discussion that I believe that we're going to go into today. I think we're going to speak about certain areas of forensic in the forensic field. And I just want to state, I have to state that I do not have any expertise in these particular areas. in particular, wound interpretation that we will discuss a little bit, things of that nature. I, that's not my area of specialty or expertise. I do, though, have a bit of experience in that area between training and quite a bit of firsthand experience. So, when I speak about this, it's not as an expert. I just want to clarify that, just in
Yeah,
case just in case I'm off a little bit in maybe terms or things of that nature.
yeah, but Timmy, I know you a long time, and I know for a fact you have had quite a bit on the job training, shall
Oh
we
yeah.
call it? And I'm glad you brought it up about the disclaimer because I'm kind of excited having you on today. And I forgot about the disclaimer. Bryan Kohberger is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, and a lot of what I'll be talking about on here, remember, are allegations that he is the killer of these kids. However, he's the only suspect that's being charged with murdering, okay, these kids. So, with that being said, go for it, Tim.
Well, I just within the past couple of days, I heard some talk about a few of the things that sounds like the defense is putting up some motions before the court for upcoming trial, different areas that they want to include or exclude in testimony from prosecution witnesses and defense witnesses. Uh, they're seeking different rulings from the court. What can and can't be discussed before a jury, and you know, I well, let me back that up a little bit. Well, I'll touch on that. I was going to talk about it later. A few of the things that the defense is asking for is that the term suspect vehicle not be referred to by witnesses before a jury. Words, terms, and phrases they're trying to exclude before a jury so as not to prejudice the jury or unfairly paint the defendant Kohberger in a bad light. And to me, some of this sounds ridiculous. They want to preclude the witnesses from calling him a psychopath or sociopath, a murderer. They don't want the word murderer used. To me, it sounds crazy, but I guess the defense is trying to do whatever they can to, for their client. So, with these specific terms, and they are specific when they're addressing the court, each term is going into a little bit detail, requires a response from the prosecution, an argument, so to speak, whether the judge will or will not allow these words to come in from witnesses. Like I said, murderer. They don't want you to call him a murderer. They don't want him called a sociopath or psychopath. And they don't want the vehicle he was operating, the small white vehicle, to be referred to as suspect vehicle. Now, it's kind of making me laugh a little bit because, I would maybe concede to that, but in a bit of a different way. Tell the judge that, hey, okay, I'll go with that, but hey, you didn't restrict me from the witnesses talking or speaking, calling it a different name, such as the target vehicle. the target vehicle being operated by the maniac killer instead of using those words. If you want to, play word games, so to speak, hey, let the witnesses say that then. You told me not to call him a suspect vehicle or a psychopath. Call him a maniac. You can play games with that a little bit, but that to me that seems a little, I don't know. They're grasping for straws, with these motions, trying to exclude, just words in court, which, to me sounds a little, I don't know.
Looks like they don't have much to hold on to.
Exactly. They're just throwing things up on the wall to see what sticks, I guess. So, but, one thing, that came up and has come up apparently, the big thing here is this K-bar knife sheath that was used, that was found, I should say, at the scene and ultimately revealed DNA that came back to Kohberger. And, and then at yesterday, or I heard it within the past couple of days. I don't know when the hearing was. And that's another thing. I haven't been following this case intently. I'll catch bits and pieces here and there, you know, uh, on the media or whatnot. And that's pretty much, if it pops up on the news when I'm happening to watch it, that's kind of where I'm at with this case. I haven't delved too deep into it. But some of the things I heard, especially with this knife, uh, uh, that's another thing the defense brought up as a possibility of a second person being involved because there could be a second knife that there might be evidence of, something about having a serrated knife of some sort. And, I I question that. I guess that might be somewhat of a defense that they might try to present. But there's ways that that can be dispelled uh, quite quickly. It can be included, excluded, or a possibility. The three options, I guess. But in this case, they do have that sheath that that fits this specific type of a weapon, a knife, this K-bar knife. And it's a very distinct knife. The traditional K-bar itself I believe, was first made for military use. And then I guess hit the public market after some years. But, this is a knife that is used, a weapon that is used for personal protection. Mostly, well, that was the original intent. And then it's also, when it's used as a military weapon, they'll use it for other things in the field. That, you know, it's a very sturdy, strong type of a knife. But I'll be honest with you, what I feel in the civilian world, that knife, you know, to me, has one purpose. It's to kill, or cause some damage. I mean, it could be a hunting knife, or hunting for, you know, both human and animal prey potentially. So it's a knife that was made traditionally for combat, for the military, and it's interesting. They're trying to present this second knife, and through my experience with a few of these types of incidents, with people with multiple stab wounds in particular, there are certain characteristics that come into play where you can very closely match the wounds to a particular weapon. In a case such as a knife, there are distinct, like I said, characteristics that present at the wound itself, and then deeper, at the level, the skin level, the outer skin level, and then the penetrating wound itself. You determine the size of the knife from the entry point, as long as it's measured accurately, and then you you can tell certain things. It's interesting. I'm a little familiar with the K bar. My son was a Marine Corps machine gunner, and part of his equipment was a K bar and is a K bar. And I just happen to have one, his, on hand. And this is the type that has been displayed, on the media with this type of same sheath. That's the one that they're showing, on the media there. And it does have Marine Corps markings on it. That's one of the things that K-Bar does sell and to the public. And this, it's the knife itself the blade itself is 7 inches, and this is a very sturdy knife. This being the sharp edge, I'm not going to run my finger down it, and this being the flat edge here, up here. And when a weapon such as this enters the body, the pathologist or person who I would call the wound interpretation expert would look at that, and you can actually tell where and how the knife enters from angle and depth into the body. You can actually see the flat edge on the wound and then the sharp edge just by the shape of the wound itself, the trajectory that, the position that it comes into, in touch with the body and goes into the body. It's quite interesting how that, how you can actually see that in real life on a person. And, this knife in particular too, another thing that this knife shows here in this area here, I call it a T-bar. It basically it keeps your hand from sliding up onto the blade from the handle. This being the handle here, it stops the hand from sliding up onto the blade. So what happens during, can happen, I should say, during a violent attack is when the person holding the knife is using it on someone, the hand can sometimes, and I don't want to say often, but it does, it's not uncommon for a person's hand to slide down if it doesn't have this T-bar to keep it. The force of someone coming down will slide off the handle down onto the knife, and your suspects can often get cut up here in the fingers and the hands, especially when there's a lot of blood. The knife does become slippery, and it does a little harder to grip and control. So this T-bar, as I call it, stops the hand from going down that way. So there's a lot that can be, the story can be told just by analyzing the wounds on the body, how the victim was positioned, how the suspect was positioned, how that person, I'm saying he, just as a general term, how a person, both people are positioned, your victim and your suspect, how they're holding the knife, what direction they're coming from. You get that from the wound, and there's also something that occurs during these violent attacks, and occurs very often and most times, especially with multiple injuries. They call it a cast-off. Now, a cast-off in this type of a situation occurs when a knife, since that was the type of weapon used, is inserted into the body and comes out, and it comes out with blood on it. As long as your victim is alive, it'll come out with blood on it. And then as it's pulled out and raised, it will cast off any blood, where in the direction that blade is traveling in. So you kind of envision, if you were to dip a paintbrush in front of you and then pull it up and then come back in or out, or if you were to swing it, you would have a trail of blood in this case that would go up a wall, go over your head if you have a ceiling, and even behind you if you take your swing that hard. Basically, it kind of like if you're hammering a nail. Next time you're hammering a nail, you're just think of that. As you're hammering, every time you hit the nail or a stab wound, you're coming out and back and forth. Every time you're making that motion, you're spraying blood, in the direction where that weapon is moving. So that paints an interesting, you can pretty much recreate how things happen by the victim's position, by the suspect's position. You can tell a lot through that wound interpretation and that cast off, and it's quite interesting how how you can recreate a scene, such as that nature. And from the early accounts, especially, it sounded as if all these victims were stabbed multiple times, and it sounded, early descriptions, or from what I heard, it was quite a messy scene, and that messy scene is evidence, and that's evidence that you can use to recreate the event.
Timmy, I got a few questions for you. When you look at, if he's stabbing like this over the hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if he's straight ahead, okay,
Mm-hmm.
straight ahead, or well, yeah, like this too, right? In the bed, girl's in the bed, right?
Right.
Or, big strong guy he is, right? Or
Right.
if he's slashing, then it would go from side to side too, or no.
It'll go in the direction if the weapon comes in contact with an open, or creates an open wound that creates any amount of blood, the cast off will go towards the direction that the weapon moves after the weapon is outside of the body. So, it'll go sideways, it'll go downward, whichever direction that the weapon is going, that the remaining blood on the knife, in this case, will leave a trail. You know, so it can be upward, downward, sidewards, wherever that weapon is removed from and travels in a recoil, so to speak, to lunge again. With almost with every stab wound in this type of a case, every time the knife or the slash, anytime the blood will get on that, and there's a recoil and another attack, whether it be straight on, overhead, sideways, roundhouse, downward stab, wherever the movement of the knife goes outside the body, you can often find that blood spatter trail, the cast off, as they call it.
Yeah, and that's very interesting too, because I remember in the beginning, and there was so much blood supposedly, and I believe this for a fact because I think they even showed pictures of it on the news where that blood actually, because of gravity, came downward and exited out the house at some point. There was so
I
much blood.
I I heard those early reports also. That's if that's true, that's yeah. I shook my head on that one. I know I can't say I've ever seen that myself,
Yeah,
but
that's a lot of
that's
blood.
yeah, that's a lot.
The other thing too, it's interesting to bringing up a second person. I really have thoughts about this defense because you know you and I talked about the grasping for straws, and again, Mr. Kohberger is allegedly the killer and the suspect here, but he's innocent until proven guilty. I mean, I have to keep putting that out there, but it again seems like they're casting, grasping. I'm sorry for straws because when he got arrested, I am 99% sure, and I could be wrong, that he said, "Who else did you arrest?" Right? Who else did you arrest? Right? So that had me thinking, why would he make that statement? What's that about? Tim, why do you think he'd make a statement?
I, when I heard that, and now with these recent motions that the defense are trying to put out there of a possible second person and another weapon, it's it's not hard for a forensic pathologist or a wound interpretation expert to determine two different weapons. I mean, by side, there are many ways you can do it. A knife such as this K-bar is not a serrated knife like you would, generally find in a, in the kitchen maybe, a steak knife or a bread knife or something of that nature. They're the ones that come to mind. I know there are many more, but this is a straight. This is a very heavy duty knife. This K-bar, and it does it, like all of them. They will leave distinct characteristics and markings to the body and through the body that a decent forensic pathologist or wound interpretation expert can give you a good idea of what type of weapon you might be looking for. And by all accounts that I hear, that the wounds closely match this K-bar style weapon, especially since they had the empty sheath that they found at the scene to help the pathologist out a little bit more, help them narrow it down. Um, I'm not exactly sure where the sheath was found, and that's another thing that gets me with this sheath. Uh, you know, the sheath here has a loop uh, that could be worn on a belt. My son had this rigged up a little bit different to his kit, they call it, basically his body armor, along with other, equipment. And the way they wore it was a little bit different. But for in civilians in particular, you would wear it on a belt generally, or tuck it into your inside your pants in your waist, not being secure. Now, I would tend to think that that might be the way the Kohberger here, tried to carry the weapon into the scene, and because it came out. if this was looped up on a belt, unless he took his belt off for some reason, it wouldn't have come off.
Excellent point. Excellent point.
It wouldn't have come off. He had this tucked. If he didn't have it on the belt, he had it likely had it tucked in his pants. He withdrew it. Either it came out with the withdrawal of the weapon and it came out of his pants, or if it didn't and just the knife came out during all the movement that he was doing, it slid out the bottom of his pants through his leg and it fell out the bottom of his pants. Now, interesting with the sheath that they have, one of the things I hope and I would think you can maybe get an idea where or at what point he lost the sheath. Because one way to do that would be I would disassemble the sheath, look on the inside of the holder, take it apart, look on the inside, because did he, stab one victim or two victims, put it back in the sheath, lost it? I mean, and then withdrew it again and lost it at some point. At what point did he lose it? You want to look inside the sheath because of the blood that would have been on the blade would have been on the inside of the sheath. So you might have victim blood inside the sheath if he, put it back into the sheath again. So I would disassemble, have a laboratory disassemble it to look for any remnants of blood inside the sheath. I would suspect they would do that. That's not advanced forensics, but that's something I would look at for sure. That would maybe, and again, where it was found. I don't know where, in which room it was found, how it was found on the floor under a bed. He could have kicked it during the attack. I mean, there's any number of things. Again, where and how it was found would also, help you, give you an idea when that came out. But I'm leaning towards that the knife and the sheath were tucked into his pants. And to bring a weapon to a scene, to somewhere, this type of a weapon, you're going there to kill. Well, you're going there to hurt somebody. Let me say that. This weapon in civilian life, it's a killing weapon. Plain and simple, it's a killing weapon. And you go back to the second knife. Sure, that would make you think that there could potentially be a second suspect. Naturally, you have two different size wounds, and that can easily be, relatively easily be determined by the size and shape of the wounds themselves. And this Kohberger is apparently very well versed in criminology, crime scenes. He studies this. Something a person might study also tells me, he's possibly staging a scene to appear as though that if a second weapon was used, I should say, this could be staged to give the appearance of a second attacker. Sure, you would need to consider that second attacker, but I would not rule out, a staged event, because this kid is pretty sharp from what we hear, and he's he studies this stuff, and he's quite familiar with police and investigative tactics. So I, kind of like bringing a gun. You have a planned attack on someone or people. You bring more than one gun, different calibers. You bring a 45 and a 22. You shoot your victim with each caliber. You might think the police are going to think, and naturally so, that there's two shooters, when in fact, you know, you have one with two weapons. You know, that it's not common people do that unless you're planning, you know, you have a plan to do that, you know, a plan of attack to act in that way. And that's staging, you know, staging a crime to appear other than what it is.
You know, Tim, the other thing too is I think the defense made a mistake in a way too by bringing in, um, you know, a second person, um, because that leaves open the cross examination, right? Of, well, maybe, I don't know if he doesn't get on the stand. I guess there's nobody to cross examine, but I mean, his expert, the expert that will testify for him can be cross examined, right? So, so can't the prosecutor turn around and say to the expert, well, so you're saying there was two people? And the expert will say, yeah, right, or something like that. You have two. Am I right?
Mhm.
Right. So are you saying he had an accomplice?
Exactly. Exactly.
No, I mean, I don't understand I don't understand the defense attorney here too. Like I understand it, but then I think to myself, whoa, you know, there might be some pros to this, but there's some cons to this too.
Right. And you can throw it right back in their face. You know, just what we talked about, the staging, bringing two knives to the scene for that reason. You know, his vain attempt to you know, make it appear as though it's something it isn't. You know, two attackers, when in fact it's one with two different weapons.
And you know what? That would have worked perfectly, I think, for him. But
Hmm.
he forgot about the DNA. Don't forget, while he's doing all this, he's forgetting the DNA. And then, as he in his euphoria, if he is in fact the killer, whoever the killer is in their euphoria, their highest heights, these guys at this point, or you know, just embedded in shock and awe or whatever, he's ready to get out of the place, leave the place. He's left the sheet upstairs, right? But as he's driving, he said, "Oh shit, I left the sheet," you know. But even though I left the sheet, I wiped it down real good. I noticed no fingerprints on it, but he's not thinking about the button. Not thinking about any skin follicles left on that button, which is DNA.
Here it is. There's the button they're talking about. There's that clasp. I don't know how you can see it, but
Yeah.
this overlays on top of that and it snaps. Now, I'm doing it backwards here, but usually you might usually do it with your thumb and it
Mm.
just snaps like that. And that's how I understand. That's where this DNA come from. This snap here, either from a
Open it
thumb
up.
or
Open it up. Open it up again, Timmy.
that's
Okay.
open
Now look. You see where your finger is over here on the jagged part on the inside?
here.
No,
Or
the other one, or either one,
well,
either
this,
finger is touching that
this is the
little,
bottom. Yeah.
yeah, the bottom,
I'm
the jagged part.
okay. Basically, if I hold this here, this is how you would close it.
Right. But
It's
I'm
a snap.
saying, don't
It's
forget,
usually a thumb.
your fingers have been on the inside of that too.
Yeah. 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 And
So
and
he didn't
and
even think about that.
and actually, when you unsnap it, well, I'm doing it now.
Just flip
Yeah,
it.
it's a quick pop. And again, your thumb normally would be on it. That your especially if you're right-handed, left-handed. And that's another thing I'll go back to with the wound interpretation. There often you can tell, or there's a strong likelihood you can determine right and left-handed attackers by the wound interpretation. I mean, that's another little piece of evidence that could be used to help identify your suspect. Um,
Now
so
he probably studied that too, going for his PhD in criminology. How the heck is he going to get around that? And maybe that's where this other weapon comes in. You know, he's going to try and get around that because I'm pretty sure he's a righty, but I'm not positive. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure he's a righty, but I'm not positive. The one
Well,
thing I do know, or I don't think I think his planning was good to a certain point, but his planning didn't take into consideration that particular day and how many girls would be in that room that particular day, or that a dog would be there on that particular day. Because these people that are below them, they hear that dog carrying on or whatever, right? I know it's a party house or whatever, but it's I don't know. I don't know. I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
and I'll tell you another thing about this particular knife, and well, these knives, these are sharp. They come sharp, and I mean sharp, sharp. Because my son went through. This is the second sheath he had to go through because it was so sharp. Through wear. It had gone through the tip of the sheath. I mean, these are sharp, very sharp weapons, both the point and the sharpness of the blade itself, the sharp edge, extremely sharp. So, and they keep their sharpness too. That's for sure.
Well, like you said, it's designed for killing.
Exactly.
It may have other things that there may be other things you can do with it. It may work as other tools,
Yeah.
but bottom line is that baby there was made for killing. Can that mount on a say like an M16 or a rifle as a bayonet as well?
No,
I
not.
don't think
I
so.
don't believe
That's
this.
another. Yeah.
There's no attachment on this particular knife that would allow for it to attach to a long gun.
Timmy, is there anything else before we break?
Uh, Not that's coming to mind. I mean, do you anything up your end?
Well, the one thing I want to know is I want you to say where people can get a hold of you.
Um, well, I do have a website and I do offer services to professionals, law enforcement, coroners, medical examiners, and families, and to if they have questions about a suspicious death of a loved one, or with case helping out case consultation, fresh homicide or a cold case. I offer my services to law enforcement and others to help with that where and how I can. And I do have a website. It is Braun, Braun, consultant, CONSULTANT .com. The name of the company is Braun Consulting, but I had to use consultant because consulting was taken on the internet.
Sure.
So with the .com. So it is Braun Consulting at that web address, and I do offer my services to the public and professionals, and I do training with law enforcement and other forensic specialists uh, as well.
Excellent. And we're going to put a link up there too, right to that website. So there'll be a link. People could just hit the link if they want to get in touch with you. You go right to Braun Consulting.
Very good.
All right. Thank you, sir. Is there anything else?
Not for today.
Okay. Until we talk again, thank you so much. Again, we're really honored to have you. You really put a lot of good information and education out there. I mean, straight from, one of the best homicide detectives around as far as I'm concerned. Thank you so much, Tim. Talk to you
My,
soon.
my pleasure. Have a good one, John.
Take
All
care.
right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And folks, most importantly, thank you so much for tuning in today. We can't thank you enough. And most importantly, stay on your toes. It's a violent world out there. Take care of yourselves, and, until we meet again, not only take care, but God bless as well. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, John. Bye-bye.